Hello, humans. Welcome back. Uh, so, by now, you might be running out of steam on your game development, and the fact that whatever you're making, whatever game you've made, just doesn't have the how should I say it, the pop or the sort of the gameplay satisfaction that you kind of expected when you imagined this game in your head. Now, the reason for that is because it lacks sound. And that's a very important point because sound is responsible for roughly 40, maybe 50 even percent, depending on the game, but roughly 40% on average of your satisfaction comes from sound. Because the game has only really two methods of conveying sort of events and give you feedback of realism and immersion and all sorts of that stuff. All the good stuff there is mostly responsible, half and half really, between the visuals and the sound. So if you have a team member who's the sound guys are very rare these days, but the sound guy is probably one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable member of your team, mainly due to the fact that his work will be really 40 to 50% the end result of your game. Okay, so whatever sound you have, make sure that it's legit, right? Whether you downloaded it or you have a guy who made it or whatever it is, your sound work should almost always be on point, okay? Now, we'll be working with several things. We're going to be working today with the beach ball, we're not going to be working with that. The pause menu, we might be working with that. I did do a little bit of cleanup, very very small amount of cleanup, but it was important to do some cleanup here because it was a bit of a mess. Now, when it comes to sound, okay, the reason that sound is so important is because it's another sense that you can engage your player with, right? Not just the eyes, but also the the ears. Not to mention that if you have a story-rich game, of course, you could tell your story interactively through the levels or through the events in your game. So you could have design storytelling, where the design of the level is really telling a story on its own. You could have emergent storytelling, where you have stuff like some unknown character where the player can give their own backstory. This is more of an RPG-ish type situation. You don't want to be defining the character for the player. You want the player to define the character for themselves. That's another way of telling the story, basically making the player really make the story, which is a lot easier than making your own backstory. And, of course, another way of doing this is through good old-fashioned dialogue. And dialogue is very important when it comes to storytelling games, because it just gives you, it makes you alive. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you can't have a story in a game just with dialogue or just subtitles or none at all, right? You could tell a story visually through the level. But sound is nonetheless very important because then if you're not using dialogue, you better bet that your sound cues are on point when it comes to interacting with the world, with the immersion of the world, with the appropriate sound effects for other things. You may not even have dialogue. You could just have gurbles and gerbles. Like a malfunctioning robot must sound like a malfunctioning robot if you really want to convey the appropriate atmosphere and situation to the player. So do not underestimate sound, and that's what we're going to be talking today. We're going to be adding sound to our game. Now, of course, this game is not, it doesn't have a storyline, and it doesn't have anything that really would require a high quality of a sound guy. Okay, you don't need a sound guy for something like this. Presumably, when on your own side, on your own game, you're also not going to need anything like that, right? You're probably making something small. Hopefully, you're not copying me, which would be just dumb. You make your own game, and you're coming along, and at this point, you have a working, not a working prototype, but like a working game. Which just needs a few adjustments to make it properly playable, but mechanics-wise, it's sort of done, right? You have a working menu. It's not skinned, but it's operational. It works just fine. You have a key binding set up, right? So you can have your key binds properly set up. You have notice, by the way, that the volume is properly set up now that I restarted the engine. In other words, the configurable file now is being read. So you have your resolution set up. I didn't yet add the the VSync, or I think there was something else I had to add, VSync and the full screen, not full screen mode. So maybe I'll add these later in the polishing pass or whatever. But for now, this is of course functional. The only thing I did here is I added the resume sort of thing. Oh, notice, by the way, that whenever you stay on, all right, we have to change that as well. So there's a few little things here and there that we need to sort of set and change. But in general, let me just stop this. In general, you will be having a sort of a complete game at this point. The reason for that, the reason we do the sounds at the end, generally, right? It depends on the game again. If you're having a sound-focused game, you want to start with the sound. And of course, generally, you don't want to have, for example, a background theme. Like ambience is fine, but when it comes to background music or heavy sound effects, those things get really annoying once you start playtesting the game. Because as you might imagine, you're going to play something and you're going to do something here, and you figure, all right, I'm going to change that, and you're going to play again, see how, all right, the ball should be a little bit heavier, but then you play again and be like, nah, this should be just not as high of a jump, or you could just simulate, right, and you could be making edits in real time, so that you possess the player and you just see, and then you just eject. Oops, I think I just took a screenshot. What did I play? What was it? F10? No. F11? No. F12? No. Shift F8? F9? F10? Jesus, what's the eject button? Let me just. It's F8. It's F8. Why do I not? All right, something happened here. I'm not sure, but yeah, clearly there's a little bit of a problem here. Let me just try to eject this. All right, ejecting works fine. So yeah. Now, with that being said, let's dive right into the audio system of Unreal, the sound system in Unreal Engine 4. Now, I'm not, again, repeating here. I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that I'm telling you up front, I am not a sound guy, okay? I don't understand music theory. I don't have any stellar mixing skills, right? Probably should look into that music theory because it'll probably help me out. But in general, I told you I have very simple sound skills, but they are necessary skills nonetheless if you want to have any sort of sound in your game. So that's what we're going to go over here. We're going to go over a few things that you will need probably if you're, of course, solo. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is create a folder, call it audio, because, of course, you need to have something organized, not like this, where everything is in the middle of nowhere. And in fact, I'm actually going to set its color to be something like this. It's a nice color. Generally speaking, you don't have to color code everything. As I work, eventually I just color code everything because it just looks cool on the side. But yeah, you don't have to do that. Now, here, I'm going to create another folder calling this music and another folder calling it sound effects, right? Now, at this point, like I said, you need to have downloaded sounds. I have found sounds on the web. I've downloaded some music from YouTube's royalty-free pack, and I have a set of sounds that I got from freesound.org. And generally speaking, I have quite a huge sound library when it comes to sounds, especially effects. I've purchased a bunch of packs, and I've downloaded a bunch of free royalty-free packs. I got a lot, right? But definitely, if you like, one of the best investments you can make is sound effects, okay? Especially for games. Sound effects and background music and ambience. Now, let's start with the music. First, I'm going to import myself the music set that I have over here. Let me just go to music. And here, as you can see, I've created a folder, obviously, for import audio, just because I have a lot of sound effects. I didn't want to have all of them over here. I just was checking if they were all available for import. Now, prior to this video, obviously. So we're going to start with the music. I'm going to open these. These will be imported. We're not really going to go and set the music yet, but I think it's important to just import those. Okay. Now, generally speaking, your music, your ambience, and your music should be stereo. Okay. If you hover over here, it should say how many channels it has. As you can see, it currently reads 2 channels. Now, I have no idea what mature is. Probably would have to Google that. And you can see the compression quality, you can see the duration, and the sample rate. Now, the sample rate is important, okay? First of all, the sample rate means sort of how often does your music file, like the music, like the data, the data of the file gets read. So, as in how dense, it's like the resolution of a picture, all right? At least that's my understanding how sample rate works. And of course, it's currently 44,000, which is fine. And the higher, of course, it is, the better sound quality you're going to get, for the more of a range of sounds you're going to get, all right? Just like with picture quality, for example, JPEGs have only a particular amount of colors they can have, and PNGs have much higher resolutions. Then you got target files, which could be ridiculously big because they have like their printer made for printers, so they have, I think, the highest amount of different colors. Same thing goes for this. Now, you want 44,000 for something, you know, you want 44 kilohertz for something that is going to have it's going to need the extra punch, all right? So background music obviously is fairly detailed, so you do need the extra hertz. So the sampling rate should be higher for those. And things that have actual high pitches or too low bit pitches, you should probably sample them at 44,000 as well. Of course, this kind of bloats your size, but as you can see, currently my size is 1 megabyte a pop. They're not that heavy, and they're all WAV files, right? Which, by the way, when it comes to waving, just make sure that you're importing WAV files, because if you don't have a WAV file, it will not get imported into the engine. The reason for that is because WAV files are basically raw. They're raw sound files, okay? They're not compressed. MP3 files, for example, which is the most popular method of music compression, at least in this day and age. In the future, it's probably MP10 or something. I don't know, whenever you're watching this. But currently, it's MP3. Now, I don't know if the engine will be able to import MP3 in the future, but even if it does, you almost always want to work with WAV files, .wav. Reason for that is that MP3 is compressing your file to a particularly small size, which means that you're losing a lot of how should I say this? You're losing a lot of definition of data. It's being compressed, okay? And the engine is going to compress these files nevertheless whenever you package the game. So if you have a compressed file inside the engine, and then the engine compresses that, most likely the audio quality will be absolute garbage. So that's something that you want to avoid. Therefore, you always want to be using WAV files. Now, of course, sound, just like textures and animations and media such as video, will bloat the size of your game quite significantly the more you have it. Generally speaking, in this day and age, this is not a concern, so I only suspect that in the future, this is definitely not going to be a concern, unless, of course, you're making a game for some beat-up old Android phone or Cybertron phone, whatever it is right now that is available. Now, we don't want the engine content, thank you. Now, we should go to the SFX, because, by the way, let me just preview this music. You can click, obviously, on these to let them run. Let me just see what my volume mixer is here so that I can see. It's a little bit on the low end, so let's just see 50%. 1 second here, 50%. There we go. Has to be precise. Let's see. Yeah, so this is from YouTube, right? These are YouTube sort of songs, right? And some Latino stuff, you know, just whenever we play the game so that this thing plays in the background. It doesn't have to be very loud, but it needs to be in the background so that the player can enjoy themselves, right? It's like, right, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. Latino or whatever it is. Right, okay, so we got some others such as this one, Bubblegum Game. This is probably going to be the main menu theme. I don't know, we'll see. And I've got this, which is some surfer music, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we could have 2 of them or 3. That sounds pretty dope. Yeah, okay. Let's just stop right here before we go into a music rage, and let's go into the sound effects, because of course we do need sound effects for jumping, balls hitting menu sounds, hovering sounds, button clicking sounds, all sorts of sounds. And I've downloaded those from, well, I've assorted these from a number of sources, but they're all free. I made sure that these are all free. I did not purchase these. So if you want to use those exact sources, go ahead and find them yourself. I'm not going to post them on YouTube. Screw that. As in, you know, you gotta be proactive. So do your own sort of sound effect collection. Now, most of these are royalty free. There's a few of them with attribution licenses. So we'll do that at the end when we got credits, etc. If I don't forget, because generally speaking, it's just one sound file. I don't think whoever made that is going to be having such a huge problem with it, especially considering that, you know, it's a tutorial. So I think they'll be fine. Now, I will, but generally speaking, if you are actually having like some legit music, right? These are just sounds, but you have some legit music, make sure to attribute it. Like, make sure to remember who made the track. Okay, so do that. Now, I'm gonna import. What? Filter import. Beep 20 filter create. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, we're running into problems with the beeps. Okay, so we've imported most of these, but I want to see in the output log. What's the story? No such files. Why is that? Currently, only 16-bit WAV files are supported. Oh, okay. So currently, we only have 16-bit files. That's all right. We can fix that. Let me just. That's something that you will probably have to do on your own anyway. So let's go over the Audacity situation here. I did use this just a moment ago to fix something, so this is kind of fresh in my mind. So we could definitely go over this a little bit on the quick side. Now, again, I'm not a sound guy. Audacity is an extremely powerful open source tool. It allows you to do pretty much, well, a lot of stuff. All right, just look at the effects menu. Oh, you got loads. You can generate a bunch of shit. Like, you got different tracks. You can just a lot. All right, and I'm definitely not a specialist on it. The only thing you need to know is that it can export a bunch of different, pretty much in every known sort of format, almost. And it can record, it can play. You got different sort of tracks. You've got your sort of your microphone and your speaker here. You've got 6 different ways of working. You got the sort of the pencil tool. This is for the zooming. This is for selection and cutting. This is for, I don't remember, the scaling, I think. No idea what this is. Multi-tool mode. Probably all of these together. Yeah, whatever. And the pencil does what? You can draw stuff. Well, okay, that's nice. There's a bunch of different settings here, but really for us, at least for this video, I don't think is necessary for me to go over here, because I'm not a big expert on that. I only use Audacity as much as I have to, and I suggest you do that on your own end as well, because sound is a very complex sort of thing, and it takes quite a long time just to wrap your head around that. And I think it's time not wisely invested, because effects and sounds in general are very easy to get. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and grab where was this? Wait, no, it was in game development. Sorry, my bad. So we've got the worms, and we got the imported audio, and we got the SFX. Now, if I remember correctly, it was all the beeps, including the whip whoosh 03. So I'm going to just import these here. I'm going to import these. What the hell? Oh, okay. Let me just see here. Yeah, so I'm going to read these files directly from the original, because these are copies anyway, so nobody gives a crap. So I'm going to just say, okay. Now, these are, in fact, stereo. I didn't even know that. Maybe I should import all of these here. That's something that I need to probably check, but we'll be fine. Now, generally, whenever you have a sound effect, you want it to be mono. So, oops. You want this to be mono. I wonder if there's a way to... This is stereo, so I need to convert this to mono. Let's see. Mono. Okay. I have no idea right now. How do I convert this to mono? You'd have to Google this on your own end, because generate. No, there's no need to generate. There must be an easy way to do this in mono. Let me just see. There we go. Oh, this is just for recording. God damn it. Yeah. So that's peculiar. I am not really sure what is the best way of. We should be able to change that. Split stereo to mono. Let's see what happens. All right, well, there's that. So you could do this. So there's mono now. So let's just do that. Let's just split this guy. And then split this guy. And then split this guy. This is not necessary, of course, because for our small game, this is not an issue. But you don't want to have any sort of effects. Out of stereo usually generates an effect of depth and positioning, something that you don't want because you want to be driving that positioning through the engine. So the only thing you want to have stereo on would be the music and the ambience. Dialogue is probably best done in mono, and so is sound effects. So you just want to do this. Now, I'm not going to do this for all of these because it's going to take a while, and really it's just a pain in the ass. So I've got my beeps, blips. This is also stereo, so let's just split this into mono. Delete one. You'll see that these are almost exactly the same. Probably not the best idea to split this like that. Probably I should just collapse this into mono. Currently, as you can see, this is 48,000 hertz. That's quite ridiculous. I believe I should not have done that splitting, by the way. Let me just Google this real quick. Audacity convert stereo to mono. Let's see what's the easiest way of doing this. Join to mono. Oh no, so it is split. Okay, well that's interesting. I kind of thought that you could collapse this into mono. Split join to mono. Okay, well that's interesting. So I was on the right track nonetheless. So I'm going to split this as well. They are different though. If you zoom in here, for example, you'll see that they do have a little bit of a difference, but that's not a big deal, right? Nobody's going to notice this such a small difference. And I'm going to split this as well. Like this. And I'm going to delete this one. Okay, so I've got 6 tracks now that are mono. And what else could we do? We could definitely change the sampling hertz. Although this, for example, is a little bit too ridiculous, 48,000. So I'm going to set the sampling rate to 44,000. That's a lot better. One more thing to note, by the way, and I'm going to delete this bit here because I don't need this end, and I don't need this bit either. I kind of want to keep this at. Yeah, I kind of want to keep this at its original size. I want a little bit sharper. That's what I want. Generally speaking, you want your sound effects to be starting from 0. You don't want to have any lag. So you do something like this. It doesn't have to be precise. These are very short sounds. As you can see, they're 0.5 seconds long. And realistically, you can also cut a lot out of this because these are just dead zones. You don't really need those either. It doesn't have to be, again, precise, but this is going to lower your overall size of, yeah. So this is something that you would do on your own. Again, I should probably run through all of these, but these are the ones that created a problem for me. These are the ones I'm going to use. Now, if you're running dialogue, you might want to run the hertz here. You might want to drop them down to, for example, 2200. This generally sounds fine for dialogue. You're not going to notice a huge difference. Now, here's another thing. You want to set the sampling format from 32-bit float to 16-bit PCM. Currently, of course. Later, it probably will support. I suspect the engine will most likely support 32-bit float a little bit sooner than expected, but for now, that's just not the case. So that's what I have to do anyway. Now, instead of just setting these to 16-bit and all of them, because you can tell these are definitely 16-bit. If I take a look here, the button, for example, is 705 kilobits per second, and this one is 2,000 kilobits per second. So it's quite a little bit more extensive when it comes to sampling rate. Now, one interesting thing to note here is that the bits represent each sample, okay? They don't represent they don't represent the bits don't represent the actual size. Well, they do represent the actual size, but they're dependent. The size is dependent on how much information on each sample there exists. So if you take a look here, there's just how much information each of these things have. Okay, so something like this would be your standard sort of setup. Now I'm not going to talk more about Audacity. This is probably as much as you need. So we're going to go ahead and export all of them. We don't want to export the audio. And I'm going to, well, it's already selected because I did have, I believe, some other situations I had to use this before. And I'm going to use, I'm just going to choose the game development folder for now because I want to replace these. All right. I know I'm currently reading these off the hard drive, but I'm just going to replace these anyway. So we're going to export this with, well, there's nothing to override. I suppose there is. Maybe we should, maybe this will work. I'm not sure. Let's see if it's going to work. We go to game development, TID space, import audio. Let's see if it's gonna sort of overwrite them. Let's export and just okay. Exported successful. Yeah, so they replaced. It was replaced. That's brilliant. Let's see the size. Let me just refresh here. Just F2. Okay, maybe F2 not working. So here we've got this bit and properties, data. Right, well, this didn't work out the way I thought it would. This should not be happening. Let me try to import this in the engine then. Let's import these guys, see if it will work. I doubt it though, so open. Yeah, so this didn't replace jack shit, unfortunately. So unless it's in the import audio. Oh, okay, I kind of screwed it up, my bad. So grab this guy and grab this guy and just dunk him over here and just replace, close this thing. No, I don't want to save. Let's replace these files and let's play this. Let me just see here. Yes, 710 kilobits per second, 4 kilobytes. Now this is much better, right? Instead of 40, this is 4 and 710. Brilliant. 44 hertz. What about my whip whoosh? Probably should undock this, but whatever. Yeah, 707, 222. This is a much better setup. Now comparing something to the first whip, it's pretty much the same. Now the first whip is definitely stereo. You can see that this is a stereo because it's 31 kilobytes, I think. I don't know if I can get any details off of this file info. No, it's a mono. It's great. That's great. These are monos, so that's fine. Okay, so our imports are done, and now we can actually, well, our imports are set up. Now we can actually import them. As you can see, this is the Audacity even generated ourselves. Title. Whoa, no, this. Now open these. Excellent. Now we're in business. Okay, let's just run through these real quick. See, my quit game is a stereo. That's a problem. Needs to be solved. My ball impact is a stereo. That's a problem. Needs to be solved. But for now, it will be fine. Let's hear these out. That's the ball. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. This was a little bit dull. Okay. These are my beeps. The buttons, quitting the game, the whips. Okay, great. So everything is working. Now, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual sort of setup for my asset here. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so let's do this like that. You might be thinking, okay, what do we have here? First of all, you got the compression quality, 100 billion being the best quality, 1 being the worst quality. So this happens when you compile the game. In other words, when you package the game. Then you set if it should be looping or not. Looping should be done here if you want seamless loops. So just make sure you do that. Streaming is, I'm not sure what this is. Okay. Oh yeah, this is streamed directly from the storage. Yeah, so you probably shouldn't do that for small sounds, but for big fat sounds such as ambience, and you know, very long theme songs or whatever, or anything, yeah, you should probably stream that off. Ambience especially is not, I mean, it's easy to stream, but then again, ambience is usually less than a minute long, and it's, you know, loopable. So, you know, whatever. If it's a huge audio file, you definitely need to stream it, especially if you're making an audio-based game where you're kind of reading the audio and then your gameplay is dependent on the audio, something like Audio Surf or I don't know, whatever it is out there at this point. So yeah, streaming is definitely good. Priority here, that has to do something with the streaming. I'm not sure. Obviously, it's the streaming priority, right? So, whatever. If it's overloaded, I suppose it'll prioritize which one has higher priority. Then you've got the subtitles, mature. Oh God, okay, that's what mature is. You gotta. I actually thought it was some kind of term for sounds or whatever. Yeah, so mature. Okay, that's for the subtitles, by the way. And actually, let's go over the subtitles a little bit later. I just want to talk a little bit about the sound. So as you can see, you got the sound group, which is the default one. You should probably swap that out later. But we'll keep this for default because our game, it doesn't have a lot of sounds. But you should definitely prioritize split your sound later down the line. You've got individual volume and individual pitch for each sound, and you have a sound class. Currently, this is a master sound class, so there's that. Make sure, we're going to talk about the sound class a little bit later. You also have the number of channels, which is 1. This is irreplaceable. You got the sample rate, which is fine, and you got the duration, which is also fine. These are just information. You don't actually get to change those. You got the file path, which you can, I believe, change. You got the debug info, which is not, I don't know, it just gives you, okay, this is just a console command. Then you got concurrency and attenuation, and you got curves. All right, now, here's where it gets interesting. Concurrency essentially means, and by the way, if you want to override concurrency, you need to be sure that, I'm pretty sure, you have to read the documentation, but if you want to be overriding concurrency, that's just for later, remember that. But whenever you want to override it, I think you have to uncheck this here, and as in if you want to override it inside the code, in a Q editor or whatever, make sure to uncheck this. If not, then you could check this with whatever it is you have here. So concurrency essentially is, how often can the same sound be played, you know, continuously. So let's say you have a weapon firing, and the weapon is firing like. Now the sound for the weapon firing could be like, but if you fire it fast, it'll be like, right? So sorry for bad sound effects. It's just I kind of had to explain the idea. So the concurrency here is basically what it is. It just has a bunch of settings here for, all right, so how many sound sources can we have at the same time, so that you don't have like, maybe your gunshot is, I don't know, 1 second long, but you have like a fire rate of 20 per second. So that's a lot of sounds. So you need to make sure that this is, you know, whatever you got there. That's at least how I understand it. Now, of course, you got some overrides here if you decide to override the concurrency, and you've got the priority for the sound itself. So this is like, you've got several different sounds mixing in together. Then you got the effects such as output to bus only, which I have absolutely no idea what does, and you sound submix sends. Okay, whatever. Oh yeah, okay, I understand. Now you also have the attenuation settings. These are also as you can see, these are separate blueprints, objects, actors. Okay, they're all separate, so you have to create those, as well as the master sound. They're all separate. What the attenuation setting does is, basically, the closer you are to the source of the sound, the louder it's going to get. So the attenuation settings essentially shows you, it says what kind of curve are we going to take for the sound. So I think by default it's linear. I'm not sure, or maybe actually no. I think it's not even existent. So you'll always hear it by default. I believe that's the case. I am not sure. Yeah, I think you always hear it by default, okay? And then you got the curves for whatever curves you want to associate with this. So that's that. There's that as well. You can, again, these are all well, you can't create an asset. You have to select it you have to create it in the editor itself. Now you might be thinking, all right, so you've got like a bunch of sound effects. Actually, let's talk over subtitles. I've almost forgot. The subtitles are something that are, of course, for dialogue. Now, generally speaking, you're going to have a separate dialogue dialogue asset. Okay, so in the sound here you have, I believe, no, you don't have a dialogue asset. Oh, yeah, there we go. So you got a dialogue voice and a dialogue wave. The dialogue wave is the source, and the voice is sort of the definition of the voice. So if you have a male and a female, right? And they, like, for example, the player can choose between male and female. The dialogue wave would be the sort of the voiceover work imported, just like these ones that we imported. But the actual dialogue voice will be selected when the player selects the voice. So you basically, this is like the container for all the voices that you have. You can actually hold control and all. Let's see. When editing a new character, you can find gender and plurality of a voice actor. So these two things kind of go hand in hand, but you also have stuff like subtitles, actually in the media. So you got basic overlays. I'm not going to name, let's just call this default. And that's with a typo, but whatever. You got basic overlays, and you've got localized overlays, so better. Now the default essentially takes an SRT file. Okay, if I can double click this, it essentially takes the SRT file, and you got all sorts of different overlays. So this is your sort of, if you want to do this by hand, that's not ideal. That is not ideal, but it's definitely sort of possible. Okay, and as you can see, you have the position and the objects. Now, as far as I'm aware, once you include the source file, this will actually get populated on its own. Because I don't know, you have to be some kind of maniac to create subtitles using this interface. Like, this is just, that's just redonkulous, right? So yeah, so make sure that your thing is whatever available first. Now, once you imported your source file, right, you click here and you just go, all right, well, you know, I'm going to import my SRT file. As you can see, it looks for SRTs, and of course, you got different. No, that's just subrip. Sorry, my bad. No, anyway, import these, and then you say, okay, well, I have my default English ones, but you know, I'm from Uganda, and I want to use Ugandan language. So you go for the localized version. Now, the localized version is going to essentially replace the same thing that is the default overlay. So if you take a look here, you'll also have the same file browser. If I can click on it, actually, no, I first need to set the basic overlays, which are here, right? So the basic overlays are the ones we just set over before, and these ones will be replacing them. So you can either add these here. Oh, my bad. You can either add these together and just add another set, right? Or you could have a file path source, which, why does it not let me do that? Okay, well, maybe there's something I'm missing here. But basically, you have your setups here. You've imported them as regular overlays, then I suppose, and then you just replace them with whatever these other ones are. So it would be something like this. It's weird that I can't actually use get the source file, so that's quite strange. Anyway, let me just delete these. This is how subtitles and dialogue is handled. Again, probably you don't have that issue, but subtitles is something you might consider using if you lack the voiceover talent, or you don't want to voiceover yourself, or you're incapable of doing voiceover yourself, or if your game just does not work with voiceover. Maybe if it's a sprite game or some visual storytelling game, whatever. So you could use subtitles like that. After that, of course, you've got the comments here for each subtitle. So if you got some different ones, and you can add these here, by the way, like so, and there are your subs by default. Anyway, again, it doesn't really have to be like, I'm not sure the best way of using this here, but whatever. Then you've got the actual sound master class. Now the sound class is a little bit different than the classes we work in so far. So because if I go ahead and create a master class here, that's my sound class. By the way, you can also obviously create the sound attenuation and the sound concurrency. Assuming I actually, okay, there we go. So the sound attenuation has a bunch of settings, as you can see. That's all there is, just a bunch of settings for how far away we need it to be. Currently, as you can see, it's linear, so maybe we want like, I don't know, a custom one with a curve. So you set your curve to be a particular, well, you need to like set this up like this, get an external curve, probably might be much better. Or you could create an external curve from here and just go on from there. Then the sort of, the attenuation shape, maybe it's a cone, a sphere, like how does it look? Then the spatialization, you want to see, oh, is this a 3D stereo? There's like, what's the bunch of settings here that generally I have no idea what half of these do. But if you're a sound guy, this will be like your home. And if you're not, and if you really need that, you can just Google it, right? There's loads of information about all sorts of stuff. Attenuation is essentially stuff for, like, I don't know, I have no idea what azimuth is, all right? Azimuth angle in degrees relative to the listener forward vector, which defines the focus region of the sound. Sounds playing at an angle less than this will be in focus. All right, so this is kind of like focusing a camera, I suppose. I don't know. Like, you could always figure out what this is just by tooltips and Googling. So because I'm not a sound guy, again, I have no idea what half of these things do. The other one, I've just been playing around, okay? I've just been playing around with these. Now, of course, you have the same thing for the concurrency settings, which is just that. Nothing fancy, just 4 settings, just like we saw before. You got the volume scale, the resolution scale, so then, as you can see, stop farthest, then oldest, right? Or stop oldest, or it depends on what you want. Maybe we want to be having no more than 16 shots per second, or whatever. 16 shots at any given time. So this is how often you want the sound to be played, and then you want to be limiting this to the owner and not all the sounds, okay? As you can see, the actor then plays the sound, meaning that if let's say you have 3 guns, 3 players, and they all fire, you probably want to limit this to owner, because otherwise you will be firing 16 rounds, 16 sounds between 3 players. So they'll have to share that. That's my understanding anyway. Now I'm going to delete these because I don't intend to use those at all. Maybe later the concurrency, maybe we might have to need it, but for now we don't. And in the sound class, you'll notice that you have this graph. But don't worry, it's not something crazy. If you just drag off, you'll see that it just has a new sound class. The reason for that is because the sound is essentially this. The sound class is the stuff that defines volume, pitch, stereo, bleed, low frequency bleed, I think. I don't know what this is. LFE channel, low frequency something, I suppose. Voice center channels, radio filter volumes, like a bunch of these I have. Well, there you can set if it's a UI sound or is music, or is UI sound. So that's good if you got loads of objects. And the reason why this is good is because you can create another sound class, and here in this another sound class, you could say, I believe it's possible to create well, if you create a child off of this, I think it'll be easier. So you can't. Okay, that's just great. I kind of thought you could. Well, now you have to go ahead and type this in. So you have to go ahead and, let's say I select this guy. I wonder if I can drag and drop them. No, I can't. No, I don't want. I just select this guy, and I think it's possible to grab the class. Are you for real? Yeah, balls. I'm going to have to copy this guy's name then. Copy and paste. Oh, come on. Copy and, well, technically this should be like that. So copy, and this is +1. What? No. Copy. What's wrong with me? I can't click on the damn thing. Paste 1. Enter. An object in your sound class already existing file. Do you want to replace the existing object? Yeah, I want to do that. Okay, whatever. Okay, let me just close this. There we go. Yes. So there's my thing. Now this sound class will inherit everything from here, and obviously you can add others. Like I'm currently I could be like inheriting from class name, and then I could be adding another one. It could be, I don't know. I don't have others. I have to create one. All right. Okay. I hope you get the idea, right? So whatever I said on this side will be multiplied here. So let's say volume of 1.5. And the reason this is good, by the way, is because you have different sound levels in the game. You have voice, you have ambience, you have music, and you have UI. And you also have sound effects. So you need to duck different sounds depending on how this works. So you need to be working with mixers, etc. We'll talk about this in a second, but I just want you to understand that the classes themselves are only there to represent a set of instructions on how to play a particular sound. Okay, you don't want to you don't want to be having your dialogue talk over the artillery barrage, for example, because that means that you either need to set your dialogue volume to blow your players' ears out, or you need to lower the volume of the artillery barrage. Now, you might think that this is very simple, and indeed it is. But as you have more and more sort of sounds in your game, then it could get really hectic really fast. So having such a system is really good when it's in place. Now, that being said, there's also, I'm just going to delete this because we're not going to use it. That being said, there's another thing we should consider when it comes to these. Now, you might think, okay, dude, listen, you've got like so many different freaking sounds, and do I really have to go ahead and open each and every one of them and set it up? No, you don't. You can simply select, let's say, my beeps, right click, and you could go to, let me just see here. Where's my there's my property matrix. Now, the property matrix means that you can set different, it's like opening all these windows at the same time. So all these settings are going to be shared between objects. As you can see, this is my information here, right? I've got all the appropriate info. Probably shouldn't be compressing them like that, but this is much better. In that case, all right, I want to loop this list, and I just want to loop all of them. Maybe, obviously I don't. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's possible to select, yeah. Okay, maybe not. Can I set all of them to loop? No, I don't think there's any. Maybe if I press enter. No. Well, unfortunately, I don't think think there's an easy way of setting these. But you've got loads of different options, the same ones here. We've got the compression, which is currently shared between these guys. I should probably select all of them. So you've got the compression, the sound wave, the curves, the subtitles, the sound, the info. All of these things are pretty much identical. So you can set these on a per object basis through this grid-like structure. Now, that's pretty much it when it comes to setting up your imports. And again, you do want to have monos, and like this is dull. You don't want that in a stereo. I'm not sure if I can compress this to a mono. No, it's impossible. All right, well, that's annoying, but whatever. Right. So now that we have our sounds, you might be asking yourself, all right, listen, that's enough of this stuff. Let's go ahead and add the sounds to the game. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to open my beach ball here. Now, after I did the cleanup, probably should have checked what the hell was I looking at. Where is, I want to add a sound whenever my ball is hitting anything. Okay, so whenever I hit something, I want to be adding a sound. So actually, I want to be probably adding that sound. Let's just do it like that, okay? What you have to do is play sound. You got play sound 2D and play sound at location. The at location is a 3D sound, okay? So you have to understand that 3D sounds have their own attenuation and the whole shebang. The 2D sounds are just that, all right? They're just they just play in your ears, in your headphones, in your device, the playback device. No extra sort of distance calculations or whatever is going to be ran on this sound. Now, you got a bunch of these. If you go ahead and go to audio, you got some interesting sort of functions, such as audio effects. You can just have like a master submix effect and different source effects and whatever. Change the volume, create 2D sound, deactivate reverb effect, get current, like loads of different options. But in general, you'll be interested mostly in play 2D sound, play sound 2D. Again, there's others, right? And these spawns are only for cosmetic purposes. They're not gonna, as far as I know, they're not gonna play. Actually, no. This just spawns it and plays it, and create. Does it and create actually? This does not play it. Okay, this is just for creation, and the spawn I think plays it. Yeah, spawns a sound with no tune action. Perfect for UI sounds. There it is. But we don't have UI sound, so we don't need that. And I'm going to play a a 2D sound. And this is going to be hooked. I mean, it's ugly, but I'm not going to use this situation here. So this is just an idea. This is the easiest method of playing the sound. And you'll notice that you have the volume multiplier. Now, I'm not going to hook up the volume multiplier just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I want to play my ball impact 1. Okay. And the only actor is self, generally. But these are, of course, for the concurrency settings, right? We don't have a problem with that yet. So if I compile and play, we have sound, right? That's great, and it should play at any given point. So it hits the ground, hits the invisible wall. Okay, we have a problem now. So that's something, right? So you don't want to be playing this every time it hits. You want to be playing this at a particular thing. So maybe we want to play this whenever we hit the player. But for now, this is the simplest, the easiest possible way of playing the sound. Okay, just play sound 2D, nothing fancy. You just add a volume multiplier. Could be higher, could be 2. Now this, because I'm at 50%, this will probably be at 100%. So you might want to lower your volume, but let's see. Yeah, so this is higher. Now there is a maximum to this, and there is actually recommended settings from Unreal. For example, you have your voice, your dialogue to be at 1.2 volume. You want to have your ambience at 0.5. You want to have your background music at 0.76, I think, 7.5, and then you want to have your sound effects at 1. I think that was their suggestion. But the volume can only go so high. You can't go higher than 2. Once you go higher than 2, you're going to start blowing up frequencies, which is the same as blowing up your whites or your blacks whenever you're dealing with any sort of picture or whatever. In other words, there's just so much you can multiply this by, right? But let's leave it at 1 for now. So that's how you play a sound. But you might be thinking, all right, dude, listen, you've got 4 ball impacts, right? So why not, just as an idea, what if we created an array of all these 4 impact points, and we just tried to get a random one out of them and just play it every time you hit the ball? Well, this is definitely achievable. You could say, right, so I'm gonna convert this to a variable, promote this to a variable, and this one's gonna be my sounds, and this should be a array. Okay, I just need to delete that. This should be an array, right? And then I'm going to compile, and there's my stuff. I'm going to add 4 of them. And I'm going to have ball impact 1, ball impact 2, ball impact 3, and ball impact 4. And all you got to do is, whenever you want to play a sound, you just go ahead and get one, get a copy, and plug it in. Now, currently, of course, it's 0, but we could go ahead and say, well, I want something random. And you could select, right, either random integer from range. Obviously, you want in range, but it could be from stream, right? This would be your seed, so it could be whatever. You could get it from, I don't know, from the timer or, time and date, or you could get it, you could just type it in manually, whatever floats your boat. Or you could basically simply get it, random integer from range. In range, because again, this is not a gameplay specific randomness, this is just sound specific randomness, so you don't need truly the most bestest type of randomness. And again, you want to go from 0 to what? To 3. So 0 to 3, and compile and play, and we should have different sounds. So that's number 1, that's 2, 3, 4, kind of like the same sounds over and over, but that's 1, 2, 3. There we go. So as you can see, there's definitely a good subset of sounds. Okay, and there's of course a problem again. If we have this on the floor, it's gonna fire every time the hit fires, right? So that's something. That's not necessary, however. You can do this without using code. So let me just show you how that's done. And really the meat and bones, the meat and potatoes or whatever in the entire system. For that, we need to create a queue. I'm going to create a bunch of queues. So I'm going to say we're going to create a folder for the queues. And I'm just going to create a bunch of them here. Sounds, and we need a sound cue. Now, also, by the way, I forgot to mention there's a sound mix, which is how you duck stuff. This is essentially an equalizer. And you say, all right, well, I want to get my... Now, again, I have no idea what most of these would do. Like, whenever I need a sound mix, I just mix and match until I like it. I don't know what I'm doing here. As you can see, I got gain 0. No idea. I think these are the sort of the highs, the lows, and the midtones, and something like that. But in general, even when I'm making equalizers in my car or whatever, or on the computer, I kind of just pump up the bass and lower the treble so that it doesn't break my ears when I blast the volume or something, right? So maybe you could do something like, I don't know, lower the bandwidth, increase the gain, and do some fancy stuff, frequency center. I think that's where it's going to play. I don't know. But the point is that if you know what you're doing, or if you're an equalizer guy, sound guy, whatever, you can play with this. If not, and you need it, just Google it, because I have no idea, and I don't intend to Google it right now. Now, of course, you have the actual sound cue. That's the meat and bones again. And I'm going to actually duplicate this guy a couple of times. Duplicate this guy a couple of times. There we go. So 3. So the first one's going to be jump. That's the sound cue for the jump. This one's going to be our bounce. Or actually impact. Impact bounce. And this one's going to be my... Oh yeah, flip. My flip. And I am going to have another one called button press, and another one button hover. So I got a bunch of them. And what I'm going to do in all of them is basically the same thing. I probably should have duplicated them all together, but whatever. I should also have another one for the music, by the way. So I should say, well, this is my background music, BGM. But then again, I probably don't need this because I only have 2 musics. But maybe I want more. Maybe I could have these two. I could select between these two on the in the menu. So this could be one of the menus, right? You start the game. This is what you get. Then you get this one again in the menu. Whenever you play the game, though, it will be this one. Actually, maybe not. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you do. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you could rotate between the two. I have no idea. This cue, this last cue, I'm not going to use just yet. In fact, I'm just going to delete this. Let's just delete this. Keep it very nice and simple. So these are just for sounds. Music is kind of, you don't want to put music in yet anyway, because again, you'll be playing a lot of this game. You'll be just testing this. Be like, all right, well, you know, I already talked about this before, so make sure not to input the music. Now let's go ahead and go to the jump. And you'll notice that we have a blueprint sort of kind of like situation here. Now, there's not a lot of nodes, okay? There really isn't a lot. You've got, this is the entire palette, all right? This is all you're going to get. So if you know, honestly, just go ahead and read the documentation on this. Is pretty in-depth. But in general, most of these should be fairly self-explanatory. For example, attenuation, we already talked about that. You could do whatever it is you want. This is your attenuation settings here. Then you've got the branch, which essentially gives you a true or false up. Now, the only problem with this that I have, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, this system is replaced with something much more intuitive, but it's actually impossible to sort of set this, like you have to drive this parameter through a code, through the blueprint or through code. And in order to do that, you need to set this to the appropriate name. So it'd be like balls. And whenever you are actually making a reference to this cue, like whenever you're playing the cue, you need to be passing in a true or false Boolean, and then on top of that, you're going to have the name. And the name must be the same. So it's not a very safe way of dealing with data, because if at any point you forget or mistype something here, your entire logic in your cue could just break, right? So that's something to consider. So you get whatever, and then you play whatever, and then you'd have to change. All right, when I want to play the death whenever this is true, and I want to play the power up whenever this is false, or something, right? So that's something to consider. That's the branch. Then you've got the concatenator, which basically allows you to. This is essentially a playlist. All right, that's what this is, a playlist. And as you can see, you've got the input volume for each of them, so you could just add inputs Where's my input? Okay. Oh Jesus, it's there. It's right here. So these are my inputs. And then you've got the continuous modulator, which is a thingy which allows you to, again, through code. Notice this parameter name here. You could say, okay, so you got the pitch modulation parameter, and you can say, all right, this is my pitch jump, and this is my volume jump. And then whenever you're in Blueprint, whenever you send a particular, like you need to have the exact same sort of parameter setup. So you need min, max, all of that, or a float. I'm not sure. I think the float, whatever you send, if it's a float, it will be just changing the default. So I'm not sure about that. You got the normal, absolute, and direct. This is how this gets calculated. In other words, if it's direct, you have to kind of normalize it yourself. If it's normal, you're going to normalize it on your own, and then absolute is going to be the actual value. So kind of like absolute is if it's 0.5 and then you send it 0.3, it will be 0.8. In normal, it would be 0.5, but then 0.8 will be, 0.3 will be the new one. Okay, and then absolute direct is just whatever you send it. Now, the continuous modulator, the reason it's continuous is because it allows you to, at runtime, change, the properties over the sound being played, like however you want to do this, right? So this is kind of like required if you want to be able to control the sound directly through code at runtime. So make sure to understand that. After that, you've got the crossfade by distance, which is you've got. Okay, that's quite the tooltip. I've never seen that one before. That's ACSIIR. That's fancy stuff. That's from 1980s, and it's as useful as it always is. That's pretty sweet. I'm not gonna explain this then because this is a very in-depth tooltip. But yeah, in general, this basically allows you to crossfade based on distance. So the closer you are to the object, the different, you're going to play the particular sound here. Then you've got the crossfade by parameter. So it's the same situation, but it crossfades by what? Again, a parameter, which I believe takes something. I'm not sure what it actually takes. I don't understand what kind of, I don't know what kind of type this parameter is. Maybe it's an array. I think it's an array or something. Maybe you can, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this one. Then you've got the delay, which is obvious. Delay, right? No need to explain that. I think I'm veering off here. Am I? That's the same line, is it? That's the same line. It seems like a little bit off. Then you've got the dialogue player, which is exactly what you want. As you can see here, you can see the dialogue wave, and then you've got the actual speaker, so the player. Like you need to select the appropriate wave here. And then the voiceover on the other side, you have to create that as well. So that's something you need to consider. Then you've got the Doppler, which is the Doppler effect. So you kind of like you need to have basically shifting the pitch. The Doppler effect is in physics or in real life. The Doppler effect is an occurrence when something is moving sort of as fast or faster. Well, not as fast, but or faster than the speed of sound. So because the speed of sound is different depending on the medium it's moving in air, if something is moving incredibly fast and the speed of sound in general is in space, well, not in space, but in air, is 300 meters a second. So I think it's meters a second. No, it's 300 kilometers an hour. What I'm talking about. I think it's 300 kilometers an hour. Maybe it's 300 meters a second. Jeez, I forgot. The point is that if you're moving really fast, if you're driving a car like a supercar, if you're standing on the other side of the car, you will be hearing the sort of compounding sound wave coming in towards you, and then you'll have trouble hearing it when it leaves because it's moving so fast that it takes longer for the sound to come to get to your ears when it leaves when it bypasses you. Okay, so on this side, it's coming towards you, and you'll hear it faster because it moves towards you. You'll hear it more clearly, right? Louder. The faster it moves, the louder it's going to be. That's why there's a sonic boom, by the way, when you bypass the sonic barrier, when you go supersonic. Obviously, this is subsonic, so there's no point, no problem here. But the point is that you will hear this as it approaches, and then as it leaves, you will hear it less and less. So it's kind of like difficult to explain. Just Google the damn thing, all right? That's what Doppler effect is. Now you've got the enveloper. I'm not a big fan of the enveloper, but it's kind of like a timeline. Basically, it can take its own curve. I mean, you can obviously define it here, but you can obviously also add an external curve here and then do whatever modulation you want here on the enveloper. And you can, of course, loop stuff here. Again, looping, whenever you loop things, you don't want to be looping the entire object with this, okay? Sorry, the entire sound wave. Whatever it is you're looping, you want to loop it through this tick box. So, for example, in my bubblegum, whatever, I want to be looping this, right? So this is what I'd be setting. I wouldn't be doing my looping inside the, the actual Q file asset. Now, again, you probably won't have to use this, but it's a very neat sort of function, okay? Now, after that, you've got the... What else do we have here? Oh, actually, I have selected something. Let me just deselect this because it's got its own set. Then you've got the group control, which I'm not sure what does. Okay, so there we go. Depending on the number of active sounds, it plays different. Very self-explanatory, very easy to understand. I didn't know what it does, actually, and I never had to use it before, so, whatever. Maybe you'll find something. Anytime a new sound is played, the first group that has an available slot will be chosen. That's interesting. But I have no idea how this works, so I can't help you on that side. Then you've got the looping bit, which is, of course, the how many times you want to loop something, or indefinitely. This is not good, as you can see. No, the looping node should only be used for logical procedural looping. In other words, whenever you're creating a sound, like, for example, if you use Doom as a launch point for something like this, you'd be looping something based on a condition, and you'd be having something like a true and false condition. On one side you have one loop, on the other side you have another loop, and that loop will combine with something else, and depending on another condition, it will also combine. I mean, obviously it's a very complicated system, but that's why the guy won an award. The sound guy for Doom won the award for best sound design or whatever. So that's something you could be using. This is for logical operations only. Don't try to loop your thing, your music sort of sound effect file using this node. Then you've got the mature bit, which I believe just allows the angle. So this is so this is just something with mature language. Generally speaking, these are games, and honestly, you should be going for 18+, because first of all, at least at this point in time, nobody gives a crap about the ESRB ratings. There's 5-year-olds playing GDA, so I would completely skip this if I were you. Then you've got the mixer, which is it allows you to like mix between several inputs. Like input 1 would have 0.5, and then input 2 would be like 1.2 or something, and you dunk these in, and your output is going to have the the resulting sound. Okay. You've got the modulator, which is, Jesus, it's starting to quite a lot. You've got the modulator, which is the same thing as the continuous modulator, but it only happens when you play the sound. Okay, so instead of modulating your sound pitch and volume at runtime, you actually modulate this on spawn. Now, I believe the continuous modulator had that as well. No, it doesn't. Okay, the envelope, however, does, doesn't it? Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, you can actually modulate your thing through the envelope as well. So whatever floats your boat, right? Envelope is a little bit, enveloper or whatever you want to call this, is a little bit more complex than the modulator. Generally speaking, modulator is cool. Then you've got the oscillator, which is a form of a modulator, but it just modulates, but it goes from it goes up and down, right? It oscillates, and whatever frequency you set here is what's going to happen. Then you've got it's usually good for, I don't know, some horror, I don't know. Then you've got the quality level, which is fairly self-explanatory. This is from the game user settings. If you remember, we can get the audio quality level. So I'm not sure how you can get something out of this. Actually, I'll let me think about this. Okay, so it has to be But how do you specify which quality level this is to choose which branch to play? Okay, but how do you choose which branch? I'm not sure. This probably has to do some, like, you probably have to combine this with the branch. I don't know. Generally speaking, just leave your audio at the best quality, and that's it. Then you've got the random, which is self-explanatory. You just select between several random different things, and you've got different weights depending on what it is you're trying to select. I believe it also has, yeah, has nothing. Then you got the sound class, which is, as mentioned before, the sound class that has a bunch of these settings and outputs the resulting thing. So let's say you grab an explosion and you run it through an oscillator. Let's say you modulate it first at start, then you run it through an oscillator, then you run it through a sound class to figure out, okay, these are the pitches and all that jazz that we're going to be doing, and then you just play that. Then you've got the switch, which is based on it's basically a parameter driven parameter difference. It's a select. Okay, it's a parameter driven select, and you just need to pass it in an integer. So 0, 1, 2, and a bunch of others. So this is fairly easy to implement. Okay, it means that you don't have to create as many queues. You could create one queue, and that queue could handle quite a lot of logic. It's just that I'm not a big fan of this because of you can't actually promote this to a variable or anything, to a variable. You kind of have to know what you've set here. So if you ever forget this, you're kind of screwed. You can't get that parameter. Not like a variable, you could just say get and see what you can get from your object. This means that if you want to get something, if you want to influence something, you actually have to go ahead and set the parameter, either reset the parameter or read the parameter, the appropriate one. So imagine if you have something as big as this, and you just find, okay, which parameter was, yeah, you can imagine this could get very confusing very quickly. My guess is by the time you're watching this, they have either improved on this system, or completely replaced it. Because the backend, I believe, by now, the framework with the synthesizer and all that has been done. Then you've got the wave parameter, which is just that, a parameter for playing a wave. I have no idea how that one works, because this just gives you a name, and I believe you have to pass it in a wave file, so maybe that is, you have to grab a wave file and pass it in, no idea. You've got the wave player, which is the one we're looking for. The wave player, and of course you got the comments after that, okay? So, easy enough. Now the wave player is your basic sort of grabbing something. As you can see, it's the only one that has an output. Everything else, well, you have the dialogue player too, but anything that is a player has outputs. I'm just going to delete all these guys. And in order to make this simpler, what I'm going to do is, for the jump, grab all my jump sound effects, which will be... Okay, I don't have actually a lot of jump sound effects. That's great. All right, maybe I want to do a whip. So that's one. I don't know. We've got the jump. And the... Okay, these two could be buttons. And these two could be jumps. So this could be jump 1. Right? And I'm going to just select these two. And in my jump setup, I'm going to right click and say, I want to make a random multiple WAVs with these. And I'm just going to chunk the output here. Now every time I play this, obviously this is random, and it's... Actually, I think it's pretty evident, but that's because of the weights. Obviously, if I make this 0.5, this will only be happening half the time, so... Why not? What's wrong with you, boy? Maybe it doesn't work too well with just 2 settings. Maybe I want this to be 1.5. How about now? Well, leave it at that. I don't know. Maybe we just we don't have enough randomness here, but that's kind of weird. I kind of thought I could have one extremely rare, maybe 0.1 weight, and like 10. So maybe that. No, it always flashes. I have no idea why this happens, so that's quite interesting. All right, well, that's my jump. And if I go into my beach ball here, actually this is the jump. I don't need the jump. We're going to fix this one, use this one later. But the jump is done at any point. So I'm going to close this, and what was I going to do? I was going to use the impact bounce. Notice, by the way, you can just click on this. Where's my jump? Right? So you can play these in real time in the content browser. Now, in the impact bounce is the spot where I want to select all of my impacts over here, like so, and I want to add them here with a randomization, like so. I could also select and change the pitch on these. So maybe I could go ahead and modulate this and say modulator. In the modulator, I could say, well, I want a random. I don't want to change the volume. It should be the same, but my pitch should go from 0.8 to 1.2. Maybe something 1.2. Maybe something like this. Meaning I'm going to have sort of a little bit of a different ball impact. And because ball impact is something you'll be hearing a lot, you want to have quite as much variety as you can. So if I play this. Actually, if I play this, let me just pump this up a little bit for you guys, like so. Now, I don't know what kind of volume settings you have, but okay, maybe we do want to change this a little bit. The volume on these is somewhat pathetic, so perhaps this one needs a higher volume. Again, I should probably just use the property matrix for those, and we want to pump them up a little bit, so let's go ahead and do that. Where's my thing? Volcanic property matrix, and I want to change the volume. Unfortunately, I can't change the number of channels on this guy, but volume to 1.2. Right? Now these should have a volume of 1.2. Yep, all done. And I'm going to close this. And I will just save all. Or should I? I'm curious if this will have the volume of 1.2 now. Yeah, it's set. Okay, that's nice. So this modulator, by the way, will still be 1.2. Okay? As far as I know, this just multiplies it. Much better. Actually, I might want to duplicate this and do the same thing for this first impact because it's stereo, and I'm not a big fan of this, the way this sounds. So maybe it's much better to do it like that. And the modulator would be here. I'm actually going to be quite, aggressive here. So I'm going to be 0.5 to 1.4, and the volume would be from 0.8 to 1.1, something like that. Let's see what happens. Is there a space? No. Okay, this pitch is a little bit too low. This 0.5 is too low. 0.8 will be better. Okay, I need to just play this node. Hey. Yeah, this sounds good. Okay, so I got something like that. And this is my impact bounce. And you'll notice that I can use the same code, to assign my cue, which would be, I got a bunch of these from the starter item, to be impact bounce. Compile and play. Okay. Obviously, that's not something you want, by the way. You don't want to call. You don't want to hear. So that's something we need to address. Right. So my sound works. That's something. That's something interesting. But that is not the only way of making a sound work. Right. That's the reason I wanted to kind of do this in a different way. I'm gonna actually delete this. I'm gonna reconfigure my setup here. First of all, I'm gonna add an audio component. As you can see, there it is, audio ball impact 1. Ball impact 1 because I've already selected it in my browser. But if I select the cue with the impact bounce And if I go back to my beach ball and I decide to add it, as you can see, it's right there. Audio impact balance. Of course, I could also select the regular audio and assign that manually. How this works is essentially, well, like this. You select it and you assign it. Again, this is a node that has a little bit more functionality than just playing a sound. You can override subtitles priority, say that this is a UI sound. You could suppress subtitles with it. You can have its own volume and pitch multiplier. The only thing is, you have to understand that this thing, even though it has all the settings that you can have, is concurrency, attenuate, you can set everything up in this sort of container. You can only hold one component here. So if I wanted to use all of these, I would either need 4 audio components here, or obviously 1 queue. So whichever floats your boat. Generally, you want to have your settings done in the queue so that you don't have to do them in your audio component. But if you want to override something on a per object basis, you can definitely do that. So when you drag off the audio component, as you can see, you can even socket this guy. So that's a 3D sound now. Okay. The difference is that this is now a 3D sound. Now, this is not the best approach, at least in my case, because this is not a 3D game. I mean, it is, but the player is not actually moving. But it would be nice if the bounce could be located. Let's say the player is here, right? The player is right where the camera is. And it would be nice if, you know, it would be nice if we could hear the ball actually being hit on each side of the earphones or in the headphones or the speakers or whatever, right? So this is what this will kind of facilitate. Again, attenuation is not a problem because we're very close to the source anyway. So what you do is just grab this guy and you say, all right, well, I want to play this. Now, in my case, I don't want to play this in the hit component. I have to find where I am only hitting the pawn. As I can tell, I am getting the, what is this, the ground. Okay, this is the, okay, right, I can see what I've done here. Yeah, okay, so I need to hit this probably somewhere here. Yeah, I think I need to put this somewhere here. So whenever I hit the pawn. Now this is going to be a little bit finicky. So I need to do something like this, I suppose. And add a sequence. This is going to look very ugly. So if I just grab this thing and move it a little bit backwards, that would be quite nice indeed. Oh, steady, 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 steady. There we go. So there's my sequence. I'm gonna try to keep this very simple. So like this, and I'm gonna use this bit here so that I don't get in the way. And Jesus Christ, how am I gonna do this? Like this. I suppose it's readable enough. And I'm gonna grab this off, increase the size of my comment so I can move this entire section. I'm gonna grab this off and move it down, something like this. And now here in my impact bounce, I will grab and say, all right, well, I want you to play. I want you to play. This is gonna play once, start time 0, and of course it needs an execution pin, and there it is. So technically, if I didn't screw it up, this should be playing just fine. Let's see. Play. Okay, there's a problem. Whenever I start the game, this will actually get activated, and that's not what I want. So what I want to do is I don't want to auto-activate this. That's a problem. So I need to remove auto-activation, but now if I hit this, okay, there we go, it plays. So as you can see, it works. I kind of thought I had to activate the component on my own. Again, boom. All right, boom. Maybe I could do some more sound work. But the satisfaction now is sort of there. Again, you want to have as many variations on your sound as you can in order to make sure that the player doesn't feel like he's hearing the same sound again. Sure, modulating the pitch here and there and just changing the volume could be the least sort of original and the most obvious method of increasing the variety of your sounds. But when you have a limited library, that is definitely what you want to do. Okay, so that's that's the sort of the ball hitting the player. So as you can see, it doesn't actually work. It doesn't make a sound whenever I hit anything else other than the player. So that's a solution, a solution for our problem. Now the next, of course, you've got the menu buttons, right? So and the jumps. So let's go ahead and do, I don't know, the jumps. Now at this point, guys, by the way, you could just close down this video and go ahead and do your own thing. If you're really interested in how I would do this in the menu and in the game, I suppose you could watch on. And for those who want to see the menu but don't want to see the rest of this, for example, in the jump, I'm going to start with the menu first because it's just a little bit more appropriate, I think. Now in the designer here, you'll see that I have a bunch of buttons, and these buttons have their own settings. So if I click this button, it has some settings, but they're kind of difficult to... okay, let's just search for audio because this is kind of ridiculous. Sound. Yeah, so pressed sound and hovered sound. I want to kind of do the same thing for my pressed sound and my hovered sound. So let's just say button pressed, button press, and I kind of want to do this for all of these. So I'm going to say restart options, and well, quit is going to have its own, but let's say restart and options are going to have button press. Button press. So there it is, button press. And the hovered sound would be, I could select any of the beeps, but I could create a queue to randomly choose between them. So you kind of, whenever you scroll around them, you can actually sort of create your own random tune. Let's play and see. Okay, why didn't this play? Because button press is empty, that's why. So here in the button press, we need to select maybe a couple of them. That's all you do, guys, by the way. From now on, you can just leave at this point. You don't have to watch the rest of this. But I'm going to finish this on video because, you know, you might be interested in the off chance that you are. So I got two buttons, 1 and 2. I want to select these. My button press, I'm going to make a random multiple waves, and I'm not going to even modulate these. I believe this is going to sound just fine. Maybe they're a little bit too loud, so I could just do the volume. I'll just modulate this, and I'm going to modulate the volume out of this. In fact, probably don't even have to do that. I could do a continuous modulator, but that's a fairly expensive thing. I mean, expensive when I say expensive. Volume. My volume should be 0.75, something like this, because it's fairly loud, all right? And let's see now. This is, I suppose, serviceable. Okay, great. That's what I want. Maybe I could do something else out of this, but we're gonna do this on the polishing pass. At least I don't intend to be setting up all of this perfectly right now. This was just a proof of concept. The next thing, you've got the actual. Did I select the beep? I selected the beep. Let's select an actual cue. What's our cue? Button press, button hover. So button hover. I said button hover. There we go, button hover. And the button hover will have its own whatever. And the button hover should be probably something very simple, such as another random set of sound effects, which would be my beeps. Because I really don't have that many. I mean, I have a lot of sound effects, I just don't have anywhere to use them on. So the more you have, I suppose, the better. And in the button hover, I'm just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. I'm just going to random these. And let me just hear that how this plays. Okay, interesting. Turn this on. These are a little bit too, these are not loud enough. So you probably want to do this in Audacity or something to sort out the appropriate loudness for these. kind of normalize their volume. But because I don't have that, because I don't want to do that, I'm just going to increase that volume to 1.4, I suppose, something like this. And now, if we, sounds much better. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's play the game, see what happens. And yeah, that's all we need. Play. Well, there you go. That's how you would do the menu bit. Of course, you could. That's why you haven't running into problems now. When I was talking about, well, you would be better off creating your own button and then using that. Now, if I want to change the same, if I want to have the same sound for every button I've used, I have to go ahead and hunt it down. So if I have to go open options, and each button needs to have its own sound here or whatever, and it's kind of annoying because if it's the same sound, that's kind of, it's a pain in the ass to just select each and every one. Like, I mean, look at my options menu. It's there's a bunch of stuff here that you don't want to be selecting, right? So I've got maybe, I want to change the color of whatever. I want to do this, I want to do that. So generally speaking, whenever you're creating your GUI, always consider what kind of stuff you're going to be putting on it. And yeah, for example, for the, like I said before, for the controls, you really do want to have one line, one horizontal line as a separate widget with its own logic, and then it will just populate the entire vertical box in the options menu. Not the way I did this here. Like, this is not elegant at all, right? Just be aware of that. That is not elegant. Don't do that. This is dumb, right? You want to have logic on one button, on one line, and this should be executed on each and every one of them without actually you having to set this up every single time. Also, you don't really need logic for selecting the, where's my fucking thing? Oh, yeah, the bind key. You don't want to do that where you have to go ahead and, like, there's much easier, more elegant ways of sorting out what is a axis and what is not. Just check the length. So, like this, just get length and just say length. If it's more than 0, right, then more than 0, then it exists. And if it's more than 0, it exists. Then whatever you're passing in is okay. Never mind. This is kind of off topic. It doesn't have to. You don't have to. Just be smart when you're doing your menu. All right. That's kind of off topic. All right. Dismissed. Now I'm gonna just do the jump, and I'm gonna bounce out as well. Now, for those of you who stayed over, there really isn't much new I can tell you. All I have to do is do the jump, and of course, after the jump is done, I got to do the flip. The flip is interesting, so I'm going to use all of these leftover sound effects, which are all my whips, like this, like this. Did I use the whip? I did not, so maybe this is the whip that I want to be the rarest of them all. And I'm going to just go ahead and say random. Random on these guys, quite a lot of guys, and dunk the output in here. And this whip needs to have its own set. So this is what, number 2. So this is going to have 1.1, very low weight. And let's see how this is going to work. I don't think the weights are working correctly, Mike. Like, this is ridiculous. Maybe if I lower this to 0.01, how's that? Now I should not hear this at all. Okay, the weights don't do jack shit. I think that has to do something with the volume then. I don't know. Why does this not... I don't know. That's weird. It's just that these are not realistic weights at all. Okay, I've got my swishes and whashes and whoops, and I could probably, because this is a jumping action, which is more obvious than not, which is more useful, more often used than other actions, I could probably modulate this to be between 0.75 and 1.1, and 1 and 1. I don't want to be changing the volume. Let's play. Let's see. Yeah, there's loads of different sort of sounds here. Now that my flip is done, I basically used everything I have except for the quit game. The quit game should have its own, so let me just close the, go to the quit. This doesn't even have its own name, so it should be quit game. And this one should be, well, the hovered sound should be the same, so button hovered. See, I'm already running into the same problem. And then, of course, quit game. In this case, I don't need a cue, right? Now, the quit game, of course, does not work. Oh, Jesus, I need to... Sorry for that, guys. I didn't think this was that loud. And now that I look at it, it actually is. So I should probably go ahead and change the volume on this guy to be 0.6, I suppose. Makes more sense. And if I play now, it's still pretty loud. All right, well, I'll sort this out later. Let me just hook up the jumping and the flipping, and we'll be pretty much done. Now, in my case, or in this is where my logic lies. In my case, of course, I have the all of my logic in the actors. By the way, if you haven't left that and you're thinking that I'm going to go over volume, I'm going to do this in the polishing video, so we're not going to be hooking up the volume here. All right, so if you want to hook up the volume on your end right now, go ahead and watch the next video, which should be, hopefully, with the volume. All right. Okay, for those of you that just wanted to see how I would do this, I would open the player one worm. This is another point where not inheriting from a base class would be stupid, because it basically is. But actually, this is not where I want to be. Where I want to be doing this, Mike. Yeah, this isn't what I want to be doing this. This does have an audio component here, doesn't it? I don't want this here. I don't want this here. What I want to be doing is, okay, let me just do this much simpler. Because, see, the thing is, in my case, I don't know, in your case, you'd be fine doing this in the actual, you'd be fine just doing this in the actual sort of character. But, in my case, this is actually running through a timeline, which is a little bit of a problem, because my timeline is sending updates every second. So this, even though this is like a jump and a double jump and seems like an action where somebody would press the button, this gets updated every second. So if I play a sound here, this is going to be disastrous. Therefore, I will go to my character controller. Yeah, I probably should have put this here. So I've got two of these guys, and all I need to do is have the jump. This is my first jump, and I need to be calling. My first jump would be, so play sound, just 2D sound, nothing fancy, and use a jump, the cue. I'm going to duplicate this and say flip cue, right? So what we're going to do is very ugly, but it's operational. We're probably going to have concurrency problems in this case, and you'll see what I mean. Here is that's my jump, right? And here is my other jump. These are my two jumps. And here is my flip, and this is my first flip. I need to hook, god damn it. I need to hook this up before the do once. Okay, so no. Right. Okay, this is gonna be quite crappy. So that's gonna be nasty. Okay. Yeah. That's the toggle, and the toggle gets called when? When does it get called? When does my toggle gets called? Oh god. Is it in the worm? No, it's not. Where the hell does toggle get called? Oh, okay. In my first jump, okay, it toggles it. Right. I need to do this when the player presses the space bar. But if it allows him, see, the thing is, it only has to happen if it's true. So if it's going to fire, so I need to do this over here. And in order to do this more successfully, I'm simply going to duplicate this guy, and I'm, instead of just collapsing these two together at the same time, just like I did for my regular jump, I'm simply going to do this very unintelligently, but you know, it has to be done. So it'll be like that. Before I do the thing, I'm gonna have to do my sound. There's a huge problem with this, and that is, of course, if I decide to add a volume multiplier, that is not what I want. So yeah, I'll see how I cram this in later down the line, but for now this should work. And I'm gonna just cut this guy out, and I'm gonna go here in my branch and put this guy in. See, I have to do the same thing twice now, like a dumbass. Crap, what was it? Was it in the enter? Yeah, it was in the enter. Good. I just want to be sure that I don't screw something up, because I haven't really been checking this out lately. And I'm kind of confused in what does. I mean, I do understand what I'm reading here, but I do see some places where they could be improved. At least I got my sounds. If I play, let's see what happens. Okay, definitely put this in the wrong spot. Oh yeah, okay. This is actually getting fired when you finish the damn thing. All right, okay. That's unfortunate. Probably I should create a custom event. I really should, I think. But whatever. Let's just do this the old-fashioned way. So my first jump would be over here. Honestly, this is always going to work, but then, no. What am I doing here? All right. Okay. I think this is going to be a problem, though, because it's going to fire off every time you spam spacebar, right? So if I unhook this, what is that? Player 2? Maybe player 1. Let's do this in player 1, see how it is. Here, and I do the false bit. It's my jump. Now this will probably every time I press spacebar now, this will fire off. Yeah, definitely an issue. So there's that. Probably need to fire off once or whatever. Need separate logic for firing this sucker once. But yeah, I mean, the jump works on its own, and the volume modulation is definitely wrong. Some of these things are way too high in the volume. Others are not strong enough. And of course, the problem is this one doesn't have anything, but it can flip. All right, well, we do have some kind of thing, but again, probably need to do this after the do once, actually. Yeah, there we go. After the do once. This should sort out all of my problems. Like this. Okay, this is extremely ugly. Do not repeat me. All right. And here is my do once gate. So this goes like so. And this goes somewhere in between, I suppose. Where does it go? Come on. Something like that. I mean, I'm kind of cramming this in right now, but whatever. I just want to see if this works correctly. I just want to use the same one-off logic, which admittedly is very ugly, but whatever. Okay. What's wrong here? Something bugged out. Something definitely bugged out on me. Yeah, it's not do once. Why is this now? Yeah, I screwed something up. Yeah. No idea what I did. But something is broken now. have to see now. There's something that's failing. Great. This is where this comes very handy. Worm controller. Revert. Yes. Yes. Please tell me now that everything is working fine. Excellent. So I have no idea what I screwed up, but I definitely screwed up something. And it works now. This is where version control comes in, guys. Remember, version control is going to save your life. Now I have to obviously open the worm control and see what the hell went wrong and kind of sort this out. But I think you guys get the point, get the idea of how this is going to work, right? I'm going to check this guy out because I do need to actually figure out where the hell am I going to put my jumping logic. But you've seen the idea behind it. You've seen how it works. Maybe add a sound for pulling up the main menu. Sorry, the pause menu. So pause would be like some kind of, I don't know, something, right? Anything that has a sound. I'll probably choose one itself. And yeah, in the next video, we will be optimizing the game. Not optimizing, but running our first polishing pass. Meaning that we're going to do the volume. We're going to fix this. Like a lot of things we'll have to fix. For example, this animation garbage. We're going to have to fix our sort of jumping. Not fix, but kind of edit these curves, because right now they're all linear. There really is, I mean, it looks very non-playable. These are just default curves. They're not giving you anything specific, so we're going to play with those, at least in my case. In your case, different. We're going to talk about polishing in the next video, obviously, but just to give you an idea of what we're going to do. So there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be done on this game, and it's a little bit overdue, and we're going to talk about this in the next video anyway. All right, so I'll see you guys next time. Sort out your sounds. Make sure your cues are loaded with the appropriate sounds, and these sounds are normalized, not like mine, where you can see there's a definitive difference between the volume. So normalizing this will be fairly appropriate. I'd say this is on the quiet end. Probably you want something of this size. You don't want something that is so quiet, but it depends on how you scale the volume. And yeah, whenever you obviously get the music, also remember which artist you downloaded from. And that's pretty much it, guys. Yeah, play around with the cue system. There's definitely lots of stuff that you can do. I didn't go over the classes, or in other words, how would you actually use parameters and set parameters here, but you do need an audio controller for that and run a bunch of crap here from that. So, you know, whatever floats your boat, play around with that and figure out how it works on your own. I'm fine. I'm happy with playing 2D sounds, at least for now. Okay. I believe my ball has the thing, though. Yeah, I think I added it to the ball. Yeah, so I do have it on the ball. So it's as simple as that. Now, this has a bunch of other ones, so I'd recommend you check it out. So you can set a bunch of different things here, such as I don't know, concurrency settings. I don't know, anything you can do. A lot of stuff. All right, okay. Bye bye, guys. See you next time. I'm off.